Hello everybody, today I'm going to be reading, as you can see on screen here, Deathwatch by Steve Parker. I'm going to be reading it on Kindle. The reason I'm reading this is that it doesn't exist as an audiobook, however the follow-up to it, the sequel, Shadowbreaker, does exist as an audiobook, but only when bought through Black Library. So the real question I'm trying to answer here is it worth spending £30 for Shadowbreaker? Because of course you should probably read the first book first before jumping on to the second book. Hopefully this helps your decision. The tunnels were alive with them. The ceilings, walls, the floor, everywhere a tide of tooth and claw, of alien organisms cloaked in shadow, slavering and chittering with lethal intent as they swept towards the trespassers. Insatiable, unstoppable. They surged forwards, unified in purpose, compelled by a single terrible will, a cold intelligence that drove them on from much deeper and lower in this inky maze of twists and turns. The command was given in no language of sounds. It was a single, all-powerful impulse, untranslatable to the human mind. The closest approximation would have been kill. But kill was too simple a word for this, an act so fundamental to the aliens' life cycle, to the cancerous spread of their merciless race across all known space. The impulse reflected a complete cycle of purpose, of experience, of need. Kill, consume, utilize, adapt, grow, spread, kill. So it would go on and on until the universe held nothing left to devour. Unless, of course, that cancer was cut out, excised with precision and lethal violence. 3 stood facing the Xenos horde. 3 warriors, unafraid, heavily armed, and clad in ceramite armor. Space Marines. The living legacy of the Emperor himself. But what could 3 people hope to do? They were almost certain to be overwhelmed here in the claustrophobic darkness. The numbers they faced were beyond count. And yet, they did not fear. Kill was the thought in their minds, too, as much a part of their life cycle as that of the ravening foe they faced. Muzzle flare from 2 bolters strobed the tunnel intersection. The air beat with a deep tattoo, bolt after bolt after bolt. Chitinous ribcages shattered. Blood sprayed in dark fonts from punctured heads and torsos. Bodies burst from within as large caliber rounds detonated deep inside alien flesh. To the 3, nothing felt so right as this killing of foes. They had been conditioned to it, programmed to live for it. It was hard-coded into every neuron. More than mere duty, it was a reason to live, the crux of their entire existence, the expression of everything they were and ever would be. Every enemy slain lifted them higher. Every mangled corpse that hit the ground pushed them that bit closer to the ceiling of their performance levels. Not a single bolt missed its mark, every shot a kill shot. Even so, it would not be enough. "A curse on you, Karas!" hissed Ignacio Solarian under his breath. 2 menacing shapes, humanoid but far from human, sped towards him, trying to flank him from the shadows to his left. He downed them without hesitation, a bolt around to each brain. Over the Vox link, he barked at the others. "We can't hold here waiting for those 2 fools. Not now. Fall back to RP2. His bolter chugged to a sudden stop. With reflexes honed over a century of warfare, he dumped the empty mag and hammered home another just in time. Something on the ceiling reached bony arms towards him. Solarian didn't need to look up. Prox alerts on his retinal display told him it was there. He turned the fat muzzle of his bolter straight upwards, fired, and stepped back a pace. A scream. A spray of hot blood. Something long-limbed and heavy crashed to the tunnel floor where he had stood. Solarian raised an armoured boot and stamped down hard, smashing the grotesque head flat on the tunnel floor. The body quivered and twitched as its nerves fired off one last time. No chance to admire his handiwork. Other targets were closing at speed. He marked each by distance, so few meters, and dropped them as they came. Bolt after bolt after bolt. "We fall back now, brothers, or we die here for naught," he growled. "Stand and fight, Ultramarine!" Another rumbled back at him. The voice belonged to Maximian Voss, battle brother of the Imperial Fists. "Scholar will be here, I know it. Watcher too, give them a damn chance." "It's our chances that concern me," Solarian shot back. 5 meters to the Ultramarine's left, there was a sudden blinding wash of white light. Voss had fired again. The flamer he carried sent out a torrent of ignited promethium that washed over the ranks of the charging foe, filling the tunnel with blazing, screeching bodies that thrashed and danced as they burned. In the close confines of the tunnels, the weapon was supremely effective, at least while its ammo lasted. Voss dumped another depleted canister from under the flamer's neck, tugged a replacement from his webbing, and pressed it into place till it clicked in its housing. 2 tanks left. He knew it wouldn't be enough. Not if the others failed to link up with them soon. Galling as it was, Voss knew the Ultramarine was right. They had to fall back while they still had firepower enough to cover their retreat. Throne, how he hated the word. He spat a curse in low Gothic, so much better for swearing than the higher tongue. "Fine," he told Solarian. "Lead us out. Paperface and I will keep the bastards off our backs." "I'm almost out," added Sifa Zed, 3rd member of the embattled trio. "Prophet, throw me a magazine." Prophet. Solarian scowled under his helm. The Raven Guard was a disrespectful fool, irreverent beyond any other space marine he had ever encountered. Nevertheless, between shots, he tossed Zed a full bolter mag, then turned and broke from the fight. At an armour-heavy trot, he led them westwards up the long, winding tunnel towards RP2 and the supply cache they had left there. Ammunition. More of it at RP1. They'd need that too, no doubt. And farther still, awaiting them at the exfil point, the 6th member of Talon Squad. The thought that almost brought a smile to Solarian's narrow lips. The foul Xenos would soon regret giving chase. Chiron would bring a storm of slaughter down upon them. It would be a fine sight, if any of them lived to see it. 20 meters up the tunnel, he turned to make sure the others were following and to give a burst of covering fire. Neither of the others could be trusted to fall back in the face of a fight. They were reckless and arrogant. They lacked proper battlefield discipline. It was a miracle they'd survived this long. That was why Solarian should have been chosen. Ultramarines fought smart, not just hard. He should have been made Alpha. Sigma would rue the day that he let the bloody Death Spectre run this fiasco. Voss and Zed were following, however, walking backwards towards him, but unable to move at speed while they held the enemy off. There was another blinding gush of white flame from Voss's weapon. It brought 20 meters of respite, a few seconds of breathing space only. Fresh pursuers would pour unflinching over the burning bodies of their dead. "Run, fools!" shouted Solarian, and he dropped into a half-crouch with his bolter braced between breastplate and pauldron. More alien shapes appeared, moving into the space Voss had just cleared, their ropey muscles and glistening organic armour detailed in the flames that guttered on the bodies of their dead broodmates. Solarian was about to pull his trigger and down the first when the tunnel wall on his immediate right exploded outwards. He was hammered against the far wall by the force of the blast, his armour pummeled by the impact of countless fist-sized rocks. Scraped and dented, he rose from his knees with a half-stumble, shaking white stars from his vision. Thick dust obscured everything around him. His helmet optics buzzed with intermittent static. Warning glyphs flashed red. The Vox link hissed in his ear. He thought he heard shouting and bolter fire. Something monstrous reared up out of the dust cloud in front of him, serpentine and segmented from what little he could see. The walls trembled with its unearthly battle scream, high and shrill, and yet deep and throaty too, as if it screamed with 2 voices. Huge clashing jaws swung towards Solarian, scything through the air, questing for prey. "I'll give you something to scream about," snarled the Ultramarine. He raised his bolter and opened fire. Deathwatch, Act 1, The Call. How arrogant we were before his coming, and how naive. The structures we trusted to maintain our unity were so fragile. Too fragile by far. We lost ourselves out there. We became strangers. We set off down different evolutionary paths. No wonder we faltered. No wonder we turned against each other. Had he not come to us then, chasing the shadows from the dark and the haze from our memories, we would have perished en masse, waging war against kin, not recognizing each other, any difference seized upon as fuel for the fires of hate. He reminded us that we were human, and he showed us that together, only together, could we endure the endless onslaught of those that were not. Inscription at Bilal, anonymous, circa 800 M31.